we will begin today's session. But before we go any further into it, this is a question that I like to ask anybody who's attending these live sessions, which is how many of you feel that economics is a hard subject? Yes or no? A simple yes or no in chat will do. Anybody here who feels that economics is very easy or maybe, not hard? Right. So this is what I've also felt. But this is something that also happened during my UPSC journey, that economics always used to be one of those subjects which was not very easy to grasp in the first instance. ऐसा लगता था कि I have to put in some special effort to understand economics, and therefore economics always used to be that one subject that you would be scared of or you would not be 100% comfortable about. Not a lot of people feel that way about, let's say, polity. People genuinely, apart from all the memorization aspect of history, they're pretty fine with history. Even for geography, some people are like, okay, some parts of it are good, some part are bad. Economics is one subject which I felt that it was always hard. And why am I talking about this is for the very simple reason that if you feel economics is hard, you've come to the right place. Because over here we have Ketan sir. Ketan sir is somebody who's coming from an IIT Delhi background. Not just that, he is somebody who's cleared civil services exam himself. So combine those two things. He has also written a bestseller economics book, which is the Indian Economy Handbook. And if you feel that there is any problem with your economics ka journey during your UPSC preparation, Ketan sir is the right person to take that issue to, and he will solve that hook, line, and sinker. That is what I have to say over here. And on top of that, there is also some very interesting tidbit about Ketan sir. तो आपने पॉप कल्चर में देखा होगा कभी कभार दैट इकोनॉमिक्स के प्रोफेसर्स आर समवेयर प्लेइंग पोकर और जस्ट वेरी गेम थ्योरी करके लगा के एंड देन देर आल्सो एक्चुअली ब्रिंगिंग इन अ लॉट ऑफ द मनी. तो केतन सर हमारे जो यहाँ पे हैं, ही हैज आल्सो बीन अ वेरी वेरी सक्सेसफुल पोकर प्लेयर बिफोर हिज journey as an economics professor began with us. And with that introduction, I'd like to hand over to Ketan sir. Ki there are hard things about economics, there are easy things about economics. But Ketan sir, I have known to bring out all the best bits to make you understand them in a way that seems very, very approachable. So, Ketan sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Abhijit sir, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. So, first thing first, am I audible loud and clearly? And am I visible? Yeah, yes. All right. Great. So, in today's webinar, we are going to look at what should be the approach for Indian economy for an absolute beginner. Um, Now, as already asked by Abhijit sir, I saw the chat and many of you find in economy particularly difficult, moderate to difficult, and our task is going to be make that hard subject is some it and turn it something that you really enjoy studying and find great joy in. All right, so I have a presentation which I'm going to share, and then we can start. Meanwhile, a question for you guys. How many of you have studied economy in your school or in your college? And how many of you have not?
I think everybody studied till 10th, but then after 10th,
Yes.
where
I
the
mean, 10th, till 10th, everyone studies, but particularly in your 11th, 12th, and in your college, many people don't have courses. Of course, if you have engineering, you have an option to also take some economy subject as your electives, right? Yeah, so yeah, many of you have also not studied. So, of course, there's no issues. I generally just assume that you have no background in economy, and we take it from level zero. All right. So let's start with this webinar, and let's start talking about strategy for Indian economy if you are an aspirant who is targeting CSE 27, or some of you may also be targeting CSE 28. All right. Ruhani is saying I had economics as an elective in school. First introduction was in third semester in college. And yeah, so I see I'm reading the chat, and many of you have had some courses of economy, maybe in your plus two or in college. But of course, the economy that you study for UPSC is more holistic in nature. You have to study at least more than if you have not studied in your either plus two. And even if you have studied in plus two, the level of economics that you have to study for it, UPSC is slightly a level higher. But if economics, of course, economics, if it was your graduation subject, then you'll find it quite easy. All right. But just what I assume of you is that you have absolutely no background in economics, and we start from level zero. All right. Now, in today's webinar, we are only going to discuss what should be the strategy for you to approach the subject. Okay. How you should study the subject, what are the resources that you have to consult, what is the amount of time that you have to dedicate to the subject, and all that we'll see. Okay. Now, Abhijit, of course, Abhijit sir has already introduced me, but I also want to take some time to discuss about my own journey with UPSC. Okay, so 2013 was when I gave my first attempt at UPSC. So 2013 to 2016 was my journey, 4 attempts, and I cleared 4 prelims and appeared for 4 consecutive mains examination. Out of that, I failed in 2 mains examination and cleared 2 mains examination. I have appeared in 2 interviews. Okay, so twice I've appeared in the interview, and in 2015, I was All India rank 860. Okay, so that has been my own journey with UPSC. And then, of course, I worked for some time, and then post COVID, I joined UPSCprep.com as the Indian economy faculty. All right. All right. So let's start with the strategy for Indian economy. And the first thing first, we want to look at the syllabus. What exactly does the syllabus? Because UPSC does provide a syllabus both for your prelims examination as well as your mains examination. So what does it exactly say? All right. So we'll look at the prelim syllabus first. And this is your entire prelim syllabus. Okay. So paper one, of course, paper one is the most important paper, because your marks in paper one will ultimately decide whether you clear this stage or not. Okay. Paper two is CSAT paper, which is of a qualifying nature. Of course, you have to perform well there to at least qualify. But really your performance in paper one decides कि ये prelims तुम्हारा clear हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है. Okay. Just want to ensure again that I am properly audible. Yeah, yeah. So all of you are saying that I'm properly audible. So because there was just one person, Violina was saying that I'm not audible. So maybe it's a issue at your end, or maybe some glitches at my end also. लेकिन अब क्या कर सकते हैं? It is an online medium, and some limitations are there, but no problem. Okay, so this is the prelim syllabus. Okay. Now, prelim syllabus में Indian economy के लिए you have this one-line syllabus. Okay, it says economic and social development, sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, demographics, social sector initiatives, etc. Okay, so this is all that is there in your prelim syllabus for Indian economy. Now, this is not a very detailed syllabus, काफी vague है. In fact, this is not the syllabus that we can depend on, right? Over the years, UPSC has asked so many questions on Indian economy, and we'll look at some of those questions. So this is not the syllabus that's something that we can depend on. It is very vague, and therefore a very good idea of what UPSC asks and what we have to study comes from the previous year questions. Okay, so these are the questions that UPSC has already asked in the prelims examination over the years. एंड उससे बहुत अच्छा आइडिया लगता है कि कौन कौन से टॉपिक से यूपीएससी क्वेश्चन पूछेगी, राइट? सो this is about prelims examination. Now I also want to talk about the weightage of Indian economy in your prelims examination. कि out of the 100 question that comes in your paper 1, इंडियन इकोनॉमी के कितने क्वेश्चन पूछे जा रहे हैं? Okay, and this has been the trend. So as you can see, in 2020 around 14 questions, 15 questions, sometimes it even goes high, then comes down to 14, even 13 questions. So right around average, you see 14 to 15 questions UPSC has been asking every year uh, in your prelims examination. In fact, in 2025, this number of questions even rose to as high as 20 questions. Okay. So यहाँ पे of course some variation is there, but more or less you can assume that around 15 question on an average UPSC will ask from Indian economy. So that is the weightage of the subject, and that means that this of course becomes a very important subject for your prelims examination. Absolutely, you cannot ignore this subject. Ignore करने का कोई scope नहीं है. You may think कि economy is my weak subject, I don't want to spend some time here and I'll maybe compensate with some other subject. होगा नहीं है. Okay, so it is something that you have to study for sure, and you have to be very good at it. All right, this is weightage. If we talk about prelim syllabus, yeah, 15% of your prelims, 15% of your weightage is Indian economy. So now that we have established that, let's look at the type of questions that UPSC asks in your prelims examination. किस type के? Because even among the questions on Indian economy, different type के questions पूछती है UPSC. So I have broadly, for convenience, divided it into 4 types of questions. Okay, one of course is your basic questions. All right, you have your basic questions. Just a second. All right. बेसिक क्वेश्चन से मेरा मतलब है कि क्वेश्चंस ऑफ अ वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड नेचर. फॉर एग्जांपल, दिस क्वेश्चन वाज आस्क्ड इन योर 2025 प्रीलिम्स, द क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी. ओके, तो अगर तुम्हें सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी का कॉन्सेप्ट पता है, यू नो व्हाट सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी इज, व्हाट आर इट्स वेरियस मेथड्स, वेरियस इम्पैक्ट्स, then this is a question which is almost a bread and butter question. You'll have no difficulty in answering this question. Okay, this is your basic straightforward question. Now a little more added difficulty, with a little more added difficulty, is your application based questions. Okay, now these questions again, it tests your understanding, your clarity of concepts, whether you understand the concepts of economics very well, but at the same time there is some application also involved. So those would UPSC straight forward तुमसे एक concept नहीं पूछ रही है, बट तुम्हारा कॉन्सेप्ट का क्लैरिटी टेस्ट कर रही है थ्रू सम प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल्स और प्रैक्टिकल सिनेरियोस. ओके, सो अगेन यू कैन सी दिस वाज अ क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड इन 25 कि उसने रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट, फिस्कल डेफिसिट, प्राइमरी डेफिसिट, सबके फिगर्स दे रखे हैं, अदर फिगर्स दे आर गिवन, एंड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दैट दे आर आस्किंग यू सेवरल क्वेश्चंस. ओके, so if you have clarity of these concepts, that what exactly is revenue deficit, how is it calculated, fiscal deficit, primary deficit कैसे calculate होता है, then you have absolutely no difficulty in answering these type of question also. Okay, so these two types of question, the basic questions, the application based questions, again these are very static questions. तो इसके लिए तुम्हें current affairs का कोई knowledge नहीं है. Whatever the theoretical knowledge you have, on basis of that you can all answer these two type of questions. Okay, now the next type of questions that you current affairs based questions. Okay, current affairs based questions also UPSC will ask. These questions will test your understanding of the current affairs, whether you are aware of what is going on the Indian economy, maybe some reforms that has been brought in by the RBI, या फिर गवर्नमेंट ने कुछ रिफॉर्म लेके आई है, या फिर what has been the performance of Indian economy, जो करंट इंडियन इकोनॉमी में चल रहा है उसका अंडरस्टैंडिंग टेस्ट होता है, right? So again, you can see there is a question which talks about a recent reform that was brought regarding business responsibility and sustainability report. Okay. तो उस पे क्वेश्चन पूछा. Will not get into the questions and what is the correct answer and what not, but just to explain to you that ये current affairs based questions हैं where which tests your understanding of what is happening in the Indian economy. All right. Now again, I'll ask, is my voice okay or is it breaking? कुछ internet का issue है क्या? Yeah, it's breaking. Uh, More or
I
less, it's
think
fine. Many of you are saying
हाँ
that's it's fine. Some of you are saying that it's breaking. I understand. थोड़ा सा maybe it may be breaking. And now, if you are able to understand what I am saying, then it's okay. That's not a big deal. लेकिन अगर समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, then maybe I'll change something. Uh, all right. Okay, so in fact, majority of you are saying that is fine. So let's continue. Okay. So you understand current affairs based question. ठीक है? Now a fourth type of question that is UPSC asks, and generally you have one or two these random questions that UPSC asks. Okay, this random why I say that these are random questions, because this information generally will not be there in your standard books. Books में ये information नहीं होता है, and generally you'll also not have this information, at least in a significant way, in your newspapers or current affair resources. Okay, थोड़ा सा obscure question पूछे जा सकते हैं. तो random question, these are not many questions. In fact, every year maybe one. If you are too unlucky, maybe two questions which are of very random nature. Now it's very difficult to prepare for these kind of questions. Okay, for example, last year UPSC ने पूछा था कि enforcement directorate एक 3x3 ग्रिड में इंफॉर्मेशन दिया हुआ है कि कौन सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, व्हाट आर इट्स फंक्शंस एंड इट वर्क्स अंडर विच लॉ, एंड यू हैड टू आइडेंटिफाई कि करेक्टली मैच्ड कौन से हैं. ऑलराइट. तो जनरली ये बुक्स में भी नहीं होता है. ऑफ कोर्स वंस यूपीएससी एज आस्क्ड तो फिर सारे बुक्स इसको भी अपने बुक्स में इवेंचुअली डाल ही लेंगे. But at the time UPSC asked this question, that this information would not be found in any standard books, and generally it will not also not be heavily discussed in current affairs. तो newspapers और current affairs magazine वहाँ भी नहीं मिलेगा ये information. But these are very obscure question, maybe one or two, अगर बहुत unlucky रहे तो two questions every year. Okay, now this is the type of questions that is very difficult to prepare for, and therefore I don't want you to target कि random questions को target करने के लिए कि ये question भी मैं solve कर पाऊँ, and therefore you'll end up consulting too many resources and बहुत अपना प्रेशर इंक्रीज कर लोगे खुद के ऊपर, बहुत सारा रिसोर्सेज, अब जो बर्डन है वो इंक्रीज कर लोगे, you'll become overburdened. So these are the questions that I absolutely do not recommend. If you are lucky and you know the answer, then well and good. If you're unlucky on that day and you don't know the answer, then it's not the end of the world, because these are the questions no one will get right. Okay, किसी को पता नहीं होता है, and ultimately these other questions will not impact your performance in the prelims examination, क्योंकि किसी को नहीं पता होगा, no one will score here, and therefore it will not impact whether you clear the prelims or not. What will impact is that questions that are of the basic nature, application based, current affairs based, that everyone else is getting right, those are the questions that you should not be getting wrong. Okay, so first three types of questions is are the types of questions which you should be targeting and solving at a very high rate of accuracy. Random questions depends on the luck. किसी किसी दिन तुम्हारा luck अच्छा रहा and something तुम्हें पता okay this is the information I have and I'm able to answer it, but otherwise you don't have to worry about these type of questions. So these are the broad type of questions that are asked in your prelims examination and that you have to prepare for. Okay. Now, broadly, the first two kinds of basic questions होते हैं, application based questions होते हैं, they are what I call the static questions. Okay. The basic questions and the application based questions are static questions. For solving those questions, you don't need to have knowledge of the current affairs. Okay, these knowledge are already present in your books. Okay, तो अगर book अच्छे से पढ़े हो तो ये knowledge तुम्हारे पास होगा. Whereas the current affairs based questions is what we can call the dynamic questions, questions of the dynamic nature. तो इसके लिए you need to have a good understanding of uh, current affairs. So current affairs bhi karna hai. We'll discuss how current affairs has to be prepared, but this has to be done. Now, if we see the past trends, okay, trend over the years, at least the past in 2013, the UPSC came up with a new syllabus. So we'll talk about the trends after 2013. And if you see the trends, 70% of your questions come from the static portion. So 70% of your questions, either direct questions from your standard books or some application based questions, वो 70, and therefore your major focus has to be here. Okay. Now, a very uh, crucial mistake a lot of candidates will make is that they will ignore the books. They will not cover the books. They will just watch some lectures and think that they are done with the static portion, and they'll directly jump into newspapers, current affairs magazine, and invest a lot of time in current affairs. Whereas if you go by evidence, 70% of the questions are coming from a static portion, and therefore your majority focus has to be here. And जब static में you have absolutely good command over the subject, either your concepts are clear, then of course you'll also have a much easier time reading the current affairs and understanding what is going on in the Indian economy. तो यहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा फोकस होना चाहिए, एंड देयरफॉर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू ऑल्सो रीड. Okay, not just attend the lectures and consume information in an audio visual form, but also just get your hands dirty, go to the books and read the books. Okay, so we'll talk about which books you have to study and all that, but this is a very important point that I wanted to make. Okay, now of course the current affairs is also important, 30% questions, which means that अगर हर साल 15 क्वेश्चन पूछ रही है UPSC, so maybe 4 or 5 questions will be from current affairs, so that is also important, but the static portion remains very crucial. All right, तो ये था तुम्हारा prelims ka. We discussed the prelims syllabus, the weightage in prelims, and what type of questions has been asked here. Now we'll also discuss the resources, but before that, let's talk about mains. कि मेंस में तुम्हारा क्या, एंड मेंस में यूपीएससी प्रोवाइड्स सो मेंस में योर इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज पार्ट ऑफ योर GS3 पेपर. यू मे ऑलरेडी नो दैट GS3 में you have your 5 subjects. You have your Indian economy, agriculture. Now, Indian agriculture, of course, is part of Indian economy, right? Agriculture is the primary sector of Indian economy. लेकिन उसका सिलेबस अलग से दिया हुआ है, लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आस्क्ड ऑन एग्रीकल्चर. तो एग्रीकल्चर भी we take it as a separate subject only, but it is already part of Indian economy, तो साथ में ही पढ़ते हैं. Indian economy, agriculture, then you have your science and technology, environment and disaster management, internal security. Okay, so that is whole 250 marks. Okay. Now, the 250 marks में you'll have a total of 20 questions. Out of that 20 questions, 10 questions 10 markers होते हैं, 10 questions 20 markers होते हैं. Okay. And you'll see, and this has been the trend over past several years, that you'll from Indian economy you'll have your two 10 markers and two 15 markers, so a total of 50 marks. Indian economy, agriculture can be 50 marks. Similarly, science and tech 50 marks, environment and disaster management 50 marks, and internal security 50 marks. So this is how the paper is divided. Okay, and this is not something I'm speculating कि ऐसा roughly होता है. This happens every year. In fact, even the question numbers are also the same. Okay, so you'll generally notice question number 1 and 2 will be Indian economy. Question number 3 and 4 will be agriculture. 5 and 6 will be science and tech. 7 and 8, 9 and 10, so all 10 markers. Then again 11 and 12 will be Indian economy, 15 markers. And 12 and 13 and 14 will be agriculture, 15 markers. So that is how the paper is structured. Okay. If we look at the syllabus अगर देखें, so now here we have a much detailed syllabus from UPSC. Okay, जो prelim syllabus है वो एक line का syllabus है, very vague and does not accurately do justice to the type of questions UPSC is asking. But the main syllabus is much more defined, much more detailed, and very accurately represents the type of question that UPSC asks. Okay. So this is your Indian economy, issues related to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, employment, inclusive growth, and issues arising from it. Government budgeting. Okay, so every year the government presents budget in the parliament. So things surrounding that. Effects of liberalization on the economy, changes in industrial policy, its effects on industrial growth. Infrastructure, so all kinds of infrastructure, energy, ports, roads, airports, railways, and investment models. So this is your Indian economy syllabus. Very important that you absolutely have this know this syllabus just like back of your hand. So what you can do is that take a printout of the syllabus and stick it in front of your study desk, so that time to time keep looking at the syllabus, and just to have an understanding of you do not study study too much that is not in the syllabus. तो syllabus wise ही पढ़ाई करनी है. You have to stick to the syllabus. Now, UPSC also provides a separate syllabus for the agriculture. Okay, because agriculture you have also seen 50 marks worth of questions will come from agriculture in your GS3 paper. Okay, तो agriculture का syllabus है major crops and cropping patterns and all that, issues related to farms and subsidies, distribution system, even food processing, land reforms, everything is there in your agriculture syllabus. Now, agriculture syllabus, I also say that you should focus particularly because agriculture has a very contained content that you have to study. You can finish the agriculture syllabus in very limited period of time and has very high reward, in the sense that 50 marks worth of questions will come from here. And in fact, uh, UPSC does tend to repeat the themes of the questions it is asking year on year. So it is also very easy to kind of predict what kind of questions UPSC will ask here. So इस पे a lot of people I see that they kind of ignore agriculture because they find it very boring. क्योंकि ऑफ कोर्स एग्रीकल्चर में ऐसा कुछ थियोरेटिकली और कॉन्सेप्ट वाइज समझने का नहीं है. यू हैव टू रिमेंबर क्वाइट अ फ्यू थिंग्स, इसलिए लोगों को थोड़ा सा बोरिंग लगता है. लेकिन आई डू हाईली रिकमेंड बिकॉज काफ़ी कम कंटेंट है इसमें, एंड इफ यू स्टडी इट वेल इट कैन बी कवर्ड इन अ वेरी लिमिटेड पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इन अ फ्यू डेज, एंड द रिवॉर्ड दैट इट विल गिव यू is just too much to ignore it. Okay, so that is your agriculture syllabus. Now, so I have also included slide to show you the questions. So जैसे question number one, okay, question number one and question number two you see are 10 markers from Indian economy. Then question number 3 and question number 4 will be 10 markers from agriculture. Question number 11 and question number 12 will be 15 markers again from Indian economy. And question number 13 and question number 14 will be 15 markers from agriculture. Okay. So the paper GS3 paper is very structured in that way, and that has been the case for last many years. Okay. So if we talk about the weightage, in fact, we have already talked about the number of questions asked, roughly 8. Okay. Sometimes UPSC it may be एक दो ज़्यादा कम भी कर सकती है, but roughly 8 questions, which amounts to 40%, right? 40% of your GS3. And if we talk about the mains as a whole, Indian economy consists of about 6% of your mains marks, total marks. So in mains, you have your essay paper and 4 GS papers. Total out of so 4 GS papers is 1000 marks, essay paper 250 marks, and then you have 2 optional papers, so a total of 1750 marks. Okay, out of that 100 marks worth of questions will be from Indian economy. I'm talking about economy and agriculture together. Okay, क्योंकि agriculture is just the primary sector of Indian economy, तो वो साथ में ही पढ़ना होता है. So that consists of around 5 to 6% of your weightage. तो यहाँ भी even for the purpose of mains, Indian economy remains a very, very important subject. यहाँ भी काफी important है, and therefore you absolutely cannot ignore it. Now the reason I'm talking about कि पूरे syllabus का इतना percentage है तुम्हारा Indian economy, because this should also give you an idea of the time of amount of time you have to spend with the subject. Okay, क्योंकि again this is a very basic mistake a lot of candidates will do, is that they will end up giving Indian economy just too much time. 2 महीने 3 महीने सिर्फ एक ही subject पढ़ रहे हैं, and ultimately what that will do is that will eat up in your time that you should have dedicated to other important subjects. Okay, तो ऐसा भी नहीं करना है कि बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम दे रहे हैं, ओवर एम्फसाइज जस्ट दिस वन सब्जेक्ट which consists of 15% of your prelim syllabus and around 6% of your main syllabus. So roughly, just to give you an idea of the time that you should spend on Indian economy, अगर एक साल का देखा जाए that you are spending 1 year full to cover your syllabus, then this is how much time you should be spending in all the subjects. Okay, so you have your optional में roughly around 4 months is considered a decent time to cover your optional. तो 4 महीने optional में जाएंगे. Then again as the prelims approaches, तो prelims के पहले का 2 months you are doing a more prelims focused study. Your everything is geared towards preparing for different subjects in prelims, giving mock tests and practicing and analyzing. So 2 months goes there, which gives you 6 months. Okay, for covering your GS subjects. Okay, so GS में you have your 4 subjects, 4 papers: GS1, GS2, GS3, and then GS4 you also have essay, so you also have to prepare for that. तो अगर देखा जाए तो 6 months for GS दे रहे हो, तो GS3 के लिए you have your 1.5 months. Out of that, the Indian economy portion, Indian economy plus agriculture portion is 40%, since it is also important part of your prelims. So maybe you can take more time. So that gives you around 25 to 30 days to prepare for Indian economy. So that is the amount of time you have. Okay, now I'm saying 25-30 days when you are studying only one subject the whole day. Now, of course, one subject, you don't study one subject the whole day, बहुत boring हो जाएगा. So I generally recommend that you take up two subjects at a time, maybe optional, और एक जीएस का सब्जेक्ट साथ में कर रहे हो, या फिर हिस्ट्री और पॉलिटी, हिस्ट्री एंड इकोनॉमी साथ में कर रहे हो, तो टू सब्जेक्ट्स, डूइंग टू सब्जेक्ट्स एट द सेम टाइम इज जनरली व्हाट आई रिकमेंड. तो अगर हाफ अ डे यू आर गिविंग टू इंडियन इकोनॉमी, देन यू हैव around 50 to 60 days, right? When you're giving half a day to Indian economy. So this is the amount of time you have. इतना इतना टाइम है तुम्हारे पास to cover the subject. Now I'm saying this because again, this is a very basic mistake a lot of candidates will make, that they will dedicate too much amount of time for one subject, and because there is no dearth of the amount of resources you have available in the market, and coffee bulky books, bulky notes, everything is there, and it takes just too much time to cover that. And therefore you have to be very smart with the choices of resources that you are taking and the coverage you are doing. तो इतने टाइम में तुम्हारा कवर हो जाना चाहिए. All right. All right. वसुधा इज आस्किंग प्लीज टेल अदर जीएस टाइम. तो मैं सबका दिया हुआ है, GS1 में भी, GS2 में. सो एज पर, तो दिस इज अ ब्रॉड आइडिया आई एम गिविंग यू. तो ऐसा कुछ हार्ड एंड फास्ट रूल नहीं है. सब्जेक्ट्स यू आर गुड एट, तो मे बी थोड़ा से कम टाइम में तुमने कवर कर लिया. सब्जेक्ट्स यू आर स्ट्रगलिंग विथ अ बिट, तो मे बी यू स्पेंड अ लिटिल मोर टाइम देयर. So as per your convenience, and you always have some buffer time, some wiggle room to allocate a different amount of time for different subjects. But broadly, depending on the weightage of all these subjects in your examination, इससे ज़्यादा time नहीं देना चाहिए. All right. So you have to be smart about it that way. All right. So now that we know कि कितना टाइम स्पेंड करना है in the subject, and we have also looked at the syllabus, the kind of questions UPSC has been asking. Now we should understand that what exactly we want with the subject. Indian economy में हमारा क्या target होना चाहिए. Okay. And the first thing we want is that we want to have a very strong base in the subject, which means दैट जो इकोनॉमिक कॉन्सेप्ट्स है वो बहुत क्लियर होने चाहिए कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली दिस मींस, व्हाट इज इन्फ्लेशन, व्हाट इज मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, व्हाट इज फिस्कल पॉलिसी, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ बजट, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज मेंट बाय फिस्कल डेफिसिट, प्राइमरी डेफिसिट. तो ये सारा चीज़ बहुत क्लियरली पता होना चाहिए, राइट? बिकॉज दिस इज टेस्टेड द मोस्ट. जो तुम्हारा स्टैटिक पोर्शन से 70% है, उसके लिए रिक्वायर अ वेरी स्ट्रांग बेस. You require absolute clarity of concepts. Okay. And therefore the major chunk of your work you will be doing with your books and the lectures that you'll be attending with your Indian economy faculty, which of course will be me for upscprep.com. But this is very important. Okay. You need to have a very strong base. Now, once you have built a strong base, then you can build over it. Okay. Then you need to have a grasp over current affairs. And once you understand all the concepts of economics, then you'll have a much easier time. You will also enjoy reading the newspaper articles. अभी तुम newspaper पढ़ने जाओगे, so in fact, you may find the economy article very difficult to understand. Okay. In fact, can you guys tell me in the chat that when you pick up the newspaper, uh, are you finding the Indian economy articles or the economy articles, global economy or Indian economy articles easy to understand, or you're finding some difficulty finding it difficult there? Yeah, Ria is saying, uh, Sujata is saying difficult. Akash is saying moderate. Yeah, difficult. So most of you are saying Kavya, Satya, Vatsala, Ekta. Most of you are saying that you find it difficult to understand. Okay, and that is also expected right now because you don't have that अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द कॉन्सेप्ट्स ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स। तुम्हें अभी पता नहीं है कि आरबीआई क्या काम करती है, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कैसे डिसाइड होता है, हाउ आर द इंटरेस्ट रेट चेंज्ड, गवर्नमेंट क्या क्या नोटिस करती है, द गवर्नमेंट हाउ द टैक्स रिफॉर्म्स आर डन, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट टैक्सेस, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ बजट, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर क्या होता है, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर क्या होता है। आई मीन आई एम जस्ट थ्रोइंग इन वर्ड्स एंड प्लीज डोंट थिंक दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू इंटिमिडेट यू। बट जब तक ये कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्लियर नहीं होंगे एब्सोल्युटली कि यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दीज थिंग्स आर, you'll find these articles very difficult to understand, even difficult to read, and eventually will start losing interest on it कि यार मुझे ये कुछ समझ में नहीं आता है, मेरे पल्ले नहीं पड़ रहा है, let's just start skipping it. Okay. And you don't have to do that. You cannot afford to do that if you want to stand a very good shot at this examination. So you need to have grasp of a current affairs, and then there should be interlinkage of the static and dynamic portions. Okay. तो जो static जो books में पढ़ा है, all right. So what do I mean by interlinkage of static portion and dynamic portion is, suppose you have studied in the book about GDP, okay, gross domestic product. What is gross domestic product? What are the different components of gross domestic product? How is GDP calculated? Different ways of calculation of GDP. That is the static portion जो तुम book में पढ़ते हो, that you study in your books. Then you have the dynamic portion. What is the dynamic portion? What exactly, how much is the GDP of India? What is the growth rate, GDP growth rate of India? Where does India stand in the global economy in comparison to USA, China, other countries? Where does India stand? What are some challenges in achieving high growth rate of GDP? So these are the dynamic portions. Okay, these are the current affairs. So you ultimately have to interlink both these in knowledge that you have gained from your books, from the newspapers, from current affairs magazine. And when you do that, you have this holistic understanding of the subject that ultimately will help you, of course, in your prelims examination, but in your mains examination also, because mains examination it is very important to also substantiate all your points with some data, some examples, some current affairs. So that is always very important. So this is what you want. This is what we have to achieve. Now, how do we go about achieving this? कैसे करेंगे? And this is where we come to the sources. Okay. This is the sources that you have to consult during your period of preparation for UPSC. Okay. Now, again, I have divided the sources into static and dynamic. Okay. तो static portion के लिए कौन सा resources use करना है, and which resources you have to use for the dynamic or the current affairs portion. All right. Now, in the static, again, I have divided it into NCRTs and standard book, because NCRTs, of course, NCRTs of your 11th standard and 12th standard, they are quite good resources, but they're not enough. Okay, you have to go at least one level above that. Graduation jitna nahi, you don't have to study or at graduation levels, but at least some advanced levels from your NCRTs. So the NCRTs by themselves are not sufficient. So along with NCRTs, you have to consult one standard book. Okay. Now NCRTs, I recommend two NCRTs. Okay. There is class 11th Indian Economic Development. Okay, it's a very thin booklet. In fact, you will be able to complete it in 1 or 2 days only if you study it. Very few chapters, very thin booklet. So just you can cover it in few days. 2-3 days में cover हो जाएगा. And then there is introductory macroeconomics. This is the class 11th introductory macroeconomics. Now not class 11th, class 12th. Okay. Now class 12th may you have few books, few NCRTs. इंट्रोडक्टरी माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स भी है, इंट्रोडक्टरी मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स भी है. यू डोंट हैव टू स्टडी माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स. माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स, जो इकोनॉमिक्स एज अ सब्जेक्ट इज ब्रॉडली डिवाइडेड इनटू माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स and macroeconomics. And microeconomics is when you study uh, economics from the point of view of an individual or a household, right? तो microeconomics है that you as an individual going to the market and वहाँ पे you are deciding you should buy this or you should buy that. So मतलब उस perspective से पढ़ें तो उसको microeconomics बोलते हैं. And when you study economics from the point of view of the country, कि कंट्री में कितना इन्फ्लेशन है, कितना एम्प्लॉयमेंट है, क्या क्या कितना जीडीपी, व्हाट इज द जीडीपी, व्हाट इज एम्प्लॉयमेंट, व्हाट इज द inflation, what is this, what is that, that is macroeconomics. Now microeconomics is not part of your syllabus. Okay, let me be very clear at this point of time that you don't have to study microeconomics. In the last 13 years, of all the around 220 questions that UPSC has asked uh, in your prelims examination, microeconomics, the question from microeconomics has been two or three questions. Rest 217 questions is from macroeconomics. So microeconomics you don't have to study, and whatever microeconomics that you if you study the standard book, the first chapter of that is all the microeconomics that you have to study, and rest you have to focus on macroeconomics. So this is the second NCRT I recommend, class 12th, introductory macroeconomics. Now again, you have to be slightly careful with this book because the later chapters of this book is slightly more technical. There are a lot of equations, graphs, which again is not required. Okay, so some selective reading of introductory macroeconomics has to be done. All right. So these are the two NCRTs. This should be this is sufficient. You don't have to pick up any other NCRT. Now, many teachers or faculty members, they will recommend to also pick up NCRTs of class 10th, class 9th, class 8th, all that. I don't think that is necessary. That will be just overkill. And of course, they are too simplistic in nature. And whatever you study in this NCRTs is also part of your standard book. So it's not like you miss on anything. But I do recommend picking up the NCRTs because NCRT is the only resource that is published by the government. Okay. And ultimately, you are appearing in a government exam. And government exam में appear कर रहे हो तो you should be familiar with the language used in the NCRTs. और UPSC कई बार directly questions pick up कर लेती है NCRT से, तो very good to have read NCRTs. Okay. Now once you are done with the NCRTs, and these NCRTs are very thin booklets, ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लगेगा इसको पढ़ने में, you'll not spend too much time here. Then you switch to a standard book. Okay. Now standard book is where you will do most of the heavy lifting with respect to coverage of your static portion. Okay, this is the place where all your concepts will get clarified. This is the place where you will build a strong base for the subject. Okay, now the book I recommend is the book that I have written, that is Indian Economy Handbook. Now, I recommend this book first, of course, because I have written it. So I'm not going to recommend any other book. But the reviews of this book is very good. All the students who have studied this book, they almost all of them, they say that not almost, in fact, all of them, they say that they have found this resource very good, and I do recommend it. Uh, this is the
Just,
standard book
I
that.
think, a small extra from me over here in that this very simple book by Ketan sir, it's deceptively simple. And economics may the thing that we've talked about in the beginning also, and even sir ke saath you guys talked about. I was listening to the whole conversation. So a lot of the times it's made to be more complicated than it is. And in this book, Ketan sir has focused primarily on simplicity. By the end of this book, you will understand, most of the concepts that you encounter. Obviously, some concepts may you'll need to drill down, maybe Google some more extra examples because everybody has those hard concepts. But 80 to 90% of the concepts, once you finish this book, you will be able to address. So that is my review of Ketan sir ka book.
Yes, thank you, Abhijit sir, for the kind words. In fact, uh, why I wrote this book, there's a very interesting story behind it because I myself struggled a lot with Indian economy during my preparation days. All right. And I always thought that the Indian economy does not have to be this difficult. If book would exist that would explain the concepts in a very simple language with a lot of examples, because when you don't have examples to explain a concept, then you don't grasp the whole idea. So that is what I did with this book. I've kept the language very simple. I've used a lot of examples, and the idea is that once you read this book, at least the static portion, the concepts that needs to be there for the UPSC exam, both for your prelims and mains, that you do not find any difficulty in them. Okay, so this is the book that I recommend. You can get hold of it. The PDF of this book will be shared with you over email, and if you want to purchase a physical copy, then it's available on Amazon and Flipkart also. Okay, so this should be also, these resources should be will be, in fact, will be sufficient for your static portion. Okay, so this is where you have done the heavy lifting. Sanjay is asking, is there any specific book for PYQs? So in fact, in Indian Economy Handbook, at the end of each chapter, you'll have your chapter-wise PYQs also, both from your prelims and mains. So you don't have to buy anything else for PYQs separately. Okay. So this is where you have done all the heavy lifting, all your concepts are clear, and now you're ready to jump into current affairs. Okay, because current affairs, of course, before you read this book, you'll find those news articles very difficult to understand. Now I get it, but once you have read this, then you'll have much easier time and great time just reading the news articles and the magazine. So the for the dynamic portions, the first resource that I recommend is the economic survey and the budget. Okay. The economic survey is a document that is published by Government of India just 1 day or 2 day before the budget, and it contains it. You can think of it as an annual report card of the performance of Indian economy. All right. So last in the last financial year, how the Indian economy has performed in different sectors, in different areas, and what are the challenges the Indian economy is facing, what are the various initiatives the government has taken, how has the performance of those initiatives be, what more needs to be done, what are some recommendations, the facts and figures, everything is there in the economic survey, and therefore it is a very important document that you have to study for the dynamic portion, so that you have a very good grasp over Indian economy. Okay, so you generally study with it with along with the budget. Okay, so in the budget, of course, the budget is the vision of the Indian government for the next financial year. Next financial year, what the schemes the government will bring, what are the different reforms it will bring, and how much is it will spend in what areas. Those are the things. So you study both these together. Okay. Now, this year, of course, the economic survey is a massive 730-page document. So, generally, people will also come up with summaries. I am also preparing a summary of the economic survey for this year. So, once you read the standard books, then you can go to the summary, and you can study that. But if you have time in your hand and you can read the whole document, whole the survey in its totality, then nothing better than that, because that will just improve your understanding of the Indian economy and your grasp over the subject just so much. So economic survey and the budget, these are very important resources for the dynamic portion. Along with that, I recommend regular reading of a newspaper, at least one newspaper. You all are UPSC aspirants. You should have uh, this habit of at least reading one newspaper on a daily basis. Very important. I recommend picking up, and you can pick up Either the Indian Express or the Hindu. I think these two newspapers are most read by UPSC aspirants. And zaruri nahi hai that you can switch over time. Maybe 2 months you read the Hindu, then you switch to Indian Express, read it for a few months and switch to Hindu as per your comfort. But you can pick any one of these newspapers and read it on a daily basis. And if you find something that maybe will be useful in your prelims examination or your mains examination, then by all means you can make notes out of it. All right. So these are the dynamic resources. Another resources that I have not mentioned here is a monthly current affairs magazine. Okay. Now, generally, the newspapers and keeping track of the newspaper does become quite bulky or burdensome for people, and therefore you can consult a monthly magazine, monthly current affairs magazine. The UPSCprep.com comes up with every month comes up with the core current affairs monthly magazine, which is an excellent resource. And yeah, you can also include that in your reading for Indian economy. I mean, it will have other subjects, news article from other subjects, all the subjects, in fact, so that also you can have as one of your resource. All right. So now the core current affairs monthly magazine is also available to for download for free. So you can go to the upscprep.com website or the Telegram channel and you can search for it, and it will be available. All right. So these are the resources you have to consult. Now, of course, we have determined the resources that you have to consult, but how do we study that? Okay. So let's come to that. Let's come to how to approach or how to um, prepare for the subject. Okay. So the first thing you do, the first thing that I recommend is pick up the NCRTs. Okay, you have your two NCRTs, class 11th Indian Economic Development and class 12th Introductory Macroeconomics. These are very thin booklets. Just go through it once and you don't have to return to it. Maybe highlight some important concepts you find there. But read the NCRTs. It's not like whatever information is there in the NCRT is not there in the standard book. You'll find the same information in the standard book also, but just you should be very familiar with the NCRTs. Okay. Familiar with the language of NCRTs because UPSC has a tendency to pick up questions directly from it. So NCRTs padho. Then you switch to the standard book. Okay. And so standard book is where you are going to do much of the heavy lifting. This is where you really understand what the subject is. Okay, you really understand the concepts, related things, everything, and this is where your base is built. Okay, and once you have a strong base, because it's usually said कि जब base बना रहे होते हैं, the extra careful you have to be because the base has to be strong. So I don't want you to juggle between different kinds of books or different standard book, because there are other standard books also available in the market, but you have to stick to one. Okay, if you go to multiple standard books, there will be a lot of duplication of efforts, अलग अलग चीजें पढ़ते रहोगे and eventually you'll get confused. So just stick to one and make sure you do it well. All right. So once you have done your standard book, that is the time very important to prepare your own notes. Okay. Now, I'm not saying just saying that you should prepare your own notes for the sake of preparing your own notes. I'm saying that because uh, there are a lot of benefits of preparing your notes. Of course, one is that all the information is present in one concise place, which is very revision friendly. Once the exam comes near, जब prelims आ गया या mains आ गया, then you're not going to go back to the books because that is going to get very bulky and will take a lot of consume a lot of time. which you might not have. Okay, but if you have your notes which is revision friendly, then you'll go to your notes, you know now what is what you have to study, and it could just consists of keywords. It is not very detailed, just the keywords, and very has to be very revision friendly. Also the whole process of making notes, because some people will, what they'll do is that I don't want to prepare my own notes, but some topper of previous year has uploaded his or her notes on the internet, and I've downloaded that, and I will treat that as my own notes. Please don't do that. uh, Prepare your own notes, because it's the process of preparing notes which clarifies the subject for you. Your concepts become very clear, and in the process you just grow stronger in the subject. So prepare your own notes. Okay. Now, notes are also important because time to time you will come across some important articles, some important data, some important examples, uh, all the important content, right? And you will keep integrating that into your notes as well. Okay. And therefore, that your notes is not something that is you have prepared once and you are done with it. It's going to be a living document. Okay, and living document, just like your constitution is a living document which gets uh, mm, amended all the time, you will also keep on enriching your own notes with value addition. Okay, some important thing that you have read in the newspaper or your monthly magazine or economic survey, the budget, and you include that in your notes. So over time, over a period of time, through multiple revision of your notes will become very rich in content, and that ultimately will just help you so much in your prelims examination, and particularly in your mains examination, because then the quality of answer that you'll write will be just so much superior. Okay, so you have to keep on enriching your notes from the newspapers, from economic survey, from the monthly current affairs magazine, all that. Okay, now at this point of time, as you're preparing your notes, because of course the enrichment will go on, it's a ongoing, going to be an ongoing affair. But once you are also preparing your notes, you should also start some answer writing, and you can start with previous year questions at first, and then you can switch to some mock test papers and all that. But answer writing is very important. Okay, answer writing is something that you have to do in your mains examination, which is ultimately going to decide your rank, which will decide your service, and which will decide your success in this examination. So answer writing to karna hi karna hai. It is something that you cannot ignore at all. And at the time of you preparing your notes, I recommend you start with answer writing. Now, at this point of time, I just want to say that it's very normal that at the initial phase you write answer of absolute bad quality, something that you would like to just tear and throw in the dustbin. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about it. It's just the process, because you will be making incremental improvements in your answer writing. Okay, it's not like you have read the book, now you'll be able to write answers which matches the quality of the answers that you see of toppers. So that improvement will come over time, but start, very important to start writing answers, start attempting previous year questions. Okay, once you do stand answer writing, you identify your gaps. What are some things that is lacking in my answer? What can I add here? Can I add some data, some examples, some best practices, some global best practices, all that can I add there? If you have that information, well and good. If you don't, you reach to your resources, or do you do an internet search also? Nowadays you have artificial intelligence, chat gpt, all different AI tools you have. In fact, you must be very savvy with those tech, so use it to your advantage. I wish I had those tools when I was preparing for civil service examination, but you have it. So definitely use it to your advantage, and keep on enriching your notes and keep improving with your answer writing. Okay, so that is what you have to do, and this process you have to do several times. So by the time you write your prelims examination and then your mains examination, you must have revised your notes multiple times, done so much value addition to it, enriched your notes, and in fact, would end up almost remembering everything that is there, and recallability will be very high. And that is how I think you crack this exam. Okay. All right. So now I will also discuss some things that you must avoid, some don'ts that I have. But before that, I want to take some time to also take up your doubts. If you have anything, something that you think is bothering you, and something that you want to ask, you can ask me. Meanwhile, I have a question for you guys. Um, and the question is, how many of you are targeting 27, CSE 27, and how many of you are targeting CSE 28? Just give me an idea of all the. All right, so 27, I see most of you are targeting 27. I see some 28s also. That's well and good. For the candidates, for the aspirants who are targeting 28, I would recommend, because it's very easy for you to become relaxed, right? So I would also recommend for you guys that you follow the cycle. Okay, so you prepare targeting or thinking that you are going to appear in 27, and that way maybe some urgency will be there and you will complete your syllabus in a time bound manner, and then you'll have rest of the time for multiple revisions and multiple answer writing. Asif is asking, I've purchased Essential 2027 course. Will economic survey be taught by you? I'm begin and I'm quite afraid of economics. So I just want to tell you that in the course, I'm going to take Indian economy, and the course is designed in a way that everything will be covered, and it will be covered in a phase wise manner. So in the first phase, of course, I'm going to be dealing with the static portion, because I cannot just straight away start with current affairs and economic survey. So static portion पहले पढ़ेंगे. We'll discuss all the concepts of Indian economy, and we'll make sure that we have a good base. And then in the next phase, we'll discuss current affairs and we'll integrate both. So everything will be covered, and you absolutely don't have to worry about it. Okay. Sadiq is asking, the lectures will be live or recorded. So the lectures will be live, but it will also be recorded. So the recording will be available to you. Okay. Anurag is saying, I'm your big fan, sir. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Asif is saying, your insights on X have made me choose UPSC Prep. All right. Thank you for all the compliments. I see that. Mm, there are not many doubts. If there is some regular doubt, like how can we download the book, or which Telegram, or how do we join the Telegram group, all that will be shared to you, and you can easily do that. Books will be emailed to you over the email. Okay. Sanjay is asking, does the Hindu newspaper is enough? Yes, yes. So Hindu newspaper, very good newspaper. That is enough. You don't have to go for multiple newspapers. Okay. All right. Webinar का recording भी मिल जाएगा. No problem at all. All right. So we have discussed how to approach the subject. Now I have few don'ts for you, things that I don't want you to fall for. Okay. Number one is multiple standard books. There are many standard books available in the market apart from my own book. So there are many standard books. You have to just stick to one. Okay, this is highly recommend. In fact, many students come to me and say that I have already studied from some other book. Should I leave that book and jump to Indian Economy Handbook? And I say that if you have no problem understanding the concepts, because the content is going to be more or less same. ऐसा नहीं है कि different books में अलग-अलग चीजें पढ़ा रहे हैं. The content is going to remain the same. So, if you have not already read a book, you can pick Indian Economy Handbook. That is, I highly recommend that. But you just have to make sure that you stick to it and not buy too many books. Okay, that is one. Second, and this is very important, do not procrastinate. And at this day and age, it is particularly important to remind, because you have your smartphones, you have access to the internet. There is so much distraction right now. You end up checking your notifications in your mobile phone. Start watching some reels, and lo and behold, you have spent 2 hours or 3 hours on your mobile phone. Now that is just procrastination. Many times you see that, okay, I'll study this tomorrow, I'll study this tomorrow, and that just leads to a lot of pendency. So do not procrastinate. Make sure that your social media time is very limited. Very important this. Uh, because once you have decided to prepare for this examination, it's very important that you remain focused. Of course, there are going to be days where you feel like you want to take a break, but the number of good days where you do spend a lot of time studying with a good amount of focus, that has to be more than the number of bad days. Okay, so that will be there. So please do not procrastinate. Number three, do not rely on toppers notes. So again, I've said the top center winning toppers, they will upload their notes on the internet. Now you can download them, you can look at them, you can take inspiration from those notes and see how they're preparing their notes, but don't rely on them. Don't treat those notes as your own notes and keep on revising them, and you'll think that you have achieved something. You have to make your own notes. Your note should be your own baby. It is something that you have prepared yourself and you have done value additions to yourself, because it's the process. Also the process of preparing the notes just improves your understanding so much. Okay, and the last thing I want to say is, don't be afraid of answer writing. Now, this is something that I've noticed in a lot of people. They think that let me prepare, let me read everything, let me revise once, then I'll start answer writing, and they keep on postponing answer writing to a later date. Do not do that. It is very understandable and very much expected that your initial answers will not be of very good quality. You don't have to worry about that, but please do answer writing regularly, at least once you have covered the standard book. So abhi to nahi, but once you have done one reading of the standard book, you should do some answer writing. All right. Many are asking that recording kahan pe milega. Recording will be available in the portal. Okay. On the portal, recording will be available, and um, maybe UPSCprep.com will also share the recording on the Telegram channel. Okay. All right. So that brings us to the end of this seminar. We have discussed everything, the approach to Indian economy, and I hope now you have a better clarity of how this subject has to be approached. Gayatri, if you can just type your question again, I'll take up the question. If you have questions now, I'll take up questions. Otherwise, I have nothing more to share. Vasudha is asking, Hindu newspaper shared on Telegram channel is enough. Okay, yes. So the UPSCprep.com also does daily updates on newspapers, both Indian Economy, Indian Express and the Hindu. Those are very good resources, very well created, and I do recommend, if you want to be regular with the newspaper, that is something that you can take benefit of. for sure. Uh, Parvatha is asking, is your handbook enough as a standard book? Yes, so the handbook has been written strictly from the exam perspective and as per the syllabus and is sufficient as a standard book. Absolutely. Sadiq is asking, practice questions will be provided daily or I have to see PYQs? No, so once the lectures start happening of Indian economy, there will be lecture-wise practice questions that will be provided. Uh, Anu Divya is asking, how do we manage multiple subjects in a short span of time effectively? Very good question. And the answer to that is that you have to be very organized. Okay. So if you're part of the essential course, then of course you just have to follow the course, and it is designed in a way that all the subject and the entire syllabus will be covered in a time-bound manner. If you're doing it in on your own, okay, it can still be done, but you have to be disciplined. There is no other way. You have to be very disciplined. You have to make a proper plan for yourself and have to execute as per the plan. Okay, and it is doable. It can be done for sure. Many people do it every year. Puri Matla Sujata is asking how to prepare notes from newspaper from Hindu. So this is something, there are many YouTube videos available for this. There is also some videos prepared by uh, Abhijit sir, where he has discussed how to prepare notes from newspapers. You can consult that. And it's a practice game. So एक बार में नहीं आएगा. It's something that you learn over time. Madhu is asking, can you name which course is good for beginners aiming for 27 since many are available? So I can speak about the essential course that is conducted by UPSCprep.com. It's a very good course, covers the entire syllabus in a time-bound manner. I cannot speak about other coaching. All right. Gayatri is asking how to approach PYQs in general. So my recommendation is that you once you have picked up the book, the standard book, Indian Economy Handbook, and chapter wise at the end of every chapter there are PYQs related to that chapter. Okay, so once you have read the chapter, you can attempt those PYQs. Okay, at least the prelims wala, mains wala, maybe you can uh, do it after you have completed the whole book. Okay, but at least the prelims PYQs you can do it at the same time. Also to understand that there will be some PYQs which will be current affairs of those years. Okay, so something UPSC is asked in 2017 2016 and our current affairs of those years 2016-17 में वो current affairs था, and now in 2026 you may not be able to answer those questions, so that is fine. Okay, no problem with that. Shreya is asking, how do we polish our economy answers and bring it up to UPSC standards? So again, that will happen with time. Okay, the first step is to start writing answers. And once you have started writing answers, you will analyze those answers. You'll identify your gaps. You'll think of ways to improve those answers. And with time, you will be able to do that. Okay. If you're part of the UPSCprep.com course, then you also have access to mentorship. So you will be able to book mentorship calls and discuss your answers with your mentors. So usually I have my mentorship sessions on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning 10 to 12. Okay, those are my slots, and where I discuss answers with a lot of aspirants. So you can do that also. All right. Madhu is asking, at UPSC Prep, only many courses are available. Can you name? So Now, many courses are available because there are various candidates, various aspirants at different levels of different stages of preparation, right? Now, if you're an absolute beginner who is targeting 27, then I recommend you go for the essential course. Okay. So it is the flagship course of UPSCprep.com. You can go for that. Okay. And you also can just read the brochures of different courses to uh, identify which one is more suited to your needs. Sanjay is asking, every year there will be new edition of handbook. So do I need to purchase every time to update my preparation? So the good thing about Indian Economy handbook is that I have not touched current affairs and not included current affairs in the book. So it will not get outdated very easily. Okay. So you can just buy the handbook and not worry about those things because it's very only the static things are there, which is not going to change. Okay. Also, if there is a new edition, which may happen, but whenever there is a new edition, I will share whatever changes I have made as a separate PDF and will share that for free. All right, I think more or less I have covered majority of the doubts. Of course, many of you are sending questions, and maybe I'll not be able to take everything. I think we can end here. I thank you all very much for attending the session, and I hope it was of value for you. Thank you very much, and have a good night.